Okay, I have the recording going now. My name is Bruce Douglas. I'm the Nevada State Library Archives and Public Records Early Literacy Consultant. And we're going to go ahead and begin. Let me open up my slideshow here in the beginning. This one's going to be an interesting topics we're going to talk about. Like all of them aren't, but this one is going to be particularly interesting. Please take our survey that I put in the chat. The feedbacks, as you all know from virtual programming, feedback is now the gold standard and most valuable thing you can do. And can we mute everybody's mic for a little bit because I'm getting some noise from one of them in the background? Thank you. Okay, and this is the Family Reading Program, a facilitated learning circle for early literacy and guide to virtual programming. And hello, and today I'm going to use ciao because it just sounds so cool. Okay. And this is a facilitated learning circle zone. It's a collaboration of all of our experiences, but mostly your experiences in dealing with early literacy and the best ways to do it with virtual programming. The rules for participating are please be respectful, don't speak over one another, switch off all distractions, dogs and cats excluded, and please, I know this might be impossible, don't multitask during the learning circle. Okay, our objectives are understanding early literacy skills of vocabulary and narrative skills, the executive function of self-directed engaged learning and goal setting, which Sarah will be sharing with you. And we're going to get your opinions on the best practices for doing this during virtual story times and the sharing of early literacy and mind in the making skills in virtual story times. And there will be discussion time in this. Okay, we are now at the last session for this program, but the recordings will live on for an eternity or as long as the internet is running, I'm pretty sure. Do check out our YouTube channel for any sessions you may have missed. But today is Monday, December 14th. The next one on the same topics will be December 17th. Wow, look how far we've come. Whoa. Woohoo! All right, today we're going to talk about vocabulary and narrative skills, which I hope you guys have some familiarity. But let's start off with vocabulary. Vocabulary is one of the early literacy skills that researchers says is important for children to have in order to learn to read. The more vocabulary children have, the easier it will be for them to understand what they are reading. Vocabulary is knowing the names of things, feelings, concepts, and ideas. All right, I'm going to talk to you guys about this one because this one's very important, but it is also the hardest one to do in a virtual program. The reason of this difficulty has to do with the fact you get no feedback unless you're doing a live Zoom and ask people directly. So to teach a vocabulary skill is a lot more difficult because of the lack of that feedback. When you cannot interrogate the children or get a call and response from children, you have this issue that you don't know if they are expanding their vocabulary or not. The way we can do this virtually is during our story times to increase, to add more words to the story time. You got to call an audible, I guess, so that when you see something a word that you can add other words to it and explain what you're doing. That is pretty much, I think, the only way you can do it virtually unless you're getting feedback. So when you see an object or a feeling or something is like, you know, I feel sad today. Is it? And then you think, well, what's another word for sad? And you give them a pause to think about it. And then you say, I have no idea what another word for sad is. Sorrow, maybe. Do you ever feel like, you know, you're depressed or, you know, even use bigger words? It's important to try to add two words to this that have the same meaning. And then there's the other part. The other thing that I would really suggest is puppets. If you have a puppet that you can have in a conversation with, that you're actually engaging, or if you have a minion, a library staff worker or another librarian or a volunteer who can act as a child, who can act as a person that you have a discussion with, that might be a way that you can show vocabulary to them. And it's important to note that this isn't an easy concept, but you pretty much have to go off script on your book. And one of the other things that I mentioned before is if you could have a preset board or cue card or something, or even if you can pop it up on your screen, you know, that would be a good thing. Now, the other trick on vocabulary skills is to convey this to the parents out there, because, you know, parents get into the trap of talking to babies using very simple words and children using very limited vocabulary. And to stress the importance of vocabulary to them is a good part to add into your story time. Say, parents, try to think of more than one word that means the same thing, you know, and give them a good example, not the crappy example I gave earlier, but a good example that you know that they'll relate to. And just explain to them the importance of that. If a child has good vocabulary going into school, they'll learn faster, they'll understand better, and they'll be able to make good executive function decisions. Okay, so that's but be mindful, this is not an easy one. And I just want to discuss the second one, narrative skills. Narrative skills is expressive language, including being able to describe things, to tell events in order, and to retell the stories. This is also a very, very, very difficult one for you guys to do because you're not getting the instant feedback from people. So being able to teach narrative skills is the same problem you're going to have with vocabulary. If you can't have a conversation with the children, or if you can't get that feedback from them so that you can see they're getting what you're saying, or you can interrogate them or ask them, like, what's going to happen on the next page? One of the things that I saw another library doing on virtual using narrative skills is that they wouldn't tell the end of the story. And they would say, how do you think the story ends? Talk to your parents, you know, ask your parents, tell your parents how you think the story ends, and just leave it open. And if you're really bold, tell their parents how you think it ends, have them contact you either through phone or email to tell you that, and next week we'll break out the answer for you, you know, on how the story ended. It's kind of like leave it on a cliffhanger. And I think that's pretty good, but that requires that you have really good communication with your parents and things like that. Maybe you guys could tell them to put it up on tell their parents to put it on Twitter, your Twitter account, and maybe you'd get it instantly and you get an idea of how many people are watching you live. And if you're recording the sessions, tell the parents to type below in the comment section how their child thinks the story ends. But you need to explain to them why this is important for them to do. They need to be able to tell their parents what happened. And this is a good exercise in that, because the child has to go to the parent who's probably not been watching it with them and tell them what happened in the story, and that they don't know how it ended, and I'm going to tell you how it ended. So you get that kind of interaction. These are all both very difficult things, and you know, we've explained why they're important, but I want to know your guys' ideas if you have any. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a second. I'm going to ask you guys right now, you know, have you dealt with these skills, and do you have an idea of how to do it, or how have you done it? So let's, I know there's a few of us here, so don't be shy. Please unmic and let me know what you're thinking.
So one of the things I usually do when in person, but I also do virtually, is if there is a word in my story that I think the children might not understand, I give a synonym for it, you know.
Mhm.
So I just kind of do it as I read the story when I'm doing it virtually.
That's cool. And how do you indicate that in the story? That do you just
So I'll
substitute it?
say, yeah, no, I'll say the word that's in the story, and then I'll say something, you know, like that's a long word, isn't it? Well, it means the same as this, or, you know, something like that. Just so I'll read the original word and then I'll give them a meaning that, and they might be familiar with the word, they might not, but it just helps build the synonyms.
Mhm. Oh, I like that. That's very good. So have you had any experience with the narrative? Like, you know, how do you gauge virtually to give a narrative skill?
Narrative, virtually no. In person, sometimes we would have them act out the story after we, but I guess you could ask them to do that at home too.
Hmm.
You do the story, you know, say if you have your stuffed animals, or you can act out the story. So,
Right, right. Yeah, that's one of the important things is, I think, in story times is not to be a talking head like I am right now, but to have a puppet or to have a minion around that, you know, you can engage with so that they see the interaction and they see what's going on. And even if you're really, you could probably create a video or a skit of, you know, this in action, because some of you guys have become really great filmmakers out there. I mean, I'm so impressed of where we started and where we are now with our virtual story times. Some people go, like Churchill goes, Churchill's amazing. Las Vegas is amazing. I mean, look nationally, you know, check out all the, see what they're doing concept wise to teach narrative skills. Of course, not everybody's tagging their video YouTube channels, which I kind of understand that, but I think we need to do a better job of that as a library, and when we do these things, so that it makes it easier for people to find them and search for them, and for us to find them and search for them, so we can get ideas ourselves. So if you have a person who's uploading the YouTube, give them a couple of hashtags or descriptive things. And, you know, like your story time might not be, today is the vocabulary skill story time. That's not going to happen. You know, what you want to do is you want to say our story time is Big Bad Bruce, and but this is, you know, but in your tags you have the skill that you're focusing on. So it would be really great if everybody can do that, so they can reinforce the skills and help parents find those skills nationally, internationally, wherever the World Wide Web goes. You know, somebody will watch it. I found myself watching videos from Alaska, Florida, Texas. You know, it's just the tags make it easier. I try to hashtag my things better. I'm probably going to spend a day just hashtagging these seminars so that people will know where it is. But do remember to do that, or inform the person who's uploading your YouTube video content. And I'm going to share my screen again. Terry, do you have any experiences yet to talk about?
Sorry, I'm one of the pretty novice storytime people because I'm part-time and I didn't do it much in the branch before we closed. And I've done a couple virtual ones, but I'm, you know, wanting more and more ideas, and I take notes, which helps me. What I did want to say though is our system doesn't put ours on YouTube. We have a closed Facebook group.
Okay.
So I don't think the hashtags would apply there. I mean, I think anyone can join, but they have to be given permission by the administrator to join the group. So we aren't going to be out there, you know, easy for people to find.
I will have to look into that. I think there's a way you can, just for the group itself, but you could probably put it in the description that this is a narrative skill story time.
Okay.
You know, so that they will be able to find it. Because as librarians, we're supposed to help people find information, and it's
True.
really embarrassing when we can't. But
Exactly.
but I forgot about the Facebook closed groups for some reason today. Not enough coffee, not enough food, too much on my mind.
I don't have anything to do with the administration of this, and there isn't a whole lot of communication, both directions, but my
Right.
understanding is that that also makes it a little easier with publisher permission, that it's a closed.
Right.
Giles
Right.
is nodding, so anyway.
Yeah, it's new territory for all of us. I mean, I remember when uploading certain things was a lot easier and nobody was hassling you, or checking your things, and you find a post gets flagged because the music's copyrighted. And you're like, what? And you find out you're not even discussing the problem with a human being. You're discussing it with an AI. So it's just like there's a lot more hurdles than there were, and I think there'll be even more as we go along.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Ms. Giles, do you have anything to add to our wonderful conversation?
Yeah, I think the thing that I struggle the hardest is not having that interaction.
Right.
It's so, and like I like the idea about having the teddy bear, the child having, so I was thinking, I like that idea, because I have so much fun when I'm around the kids, and at home I feel very, it's just hard. It's hard to get it across.
Well, that's one of the problems that everybody found out when they got it, because it's like we're not used to playing in front of an empty auditorium, and I imagine, I imagine that there's just, I can't imagine doing a story time without that interaction, because I feed off of that interaction.
Absolutely.
When I do them. Because I know when the story is not going well and it's time to end it, and when it's going really well, you want to extend it. And, it's just like, and you lose a little bit of that feedback, and nobody really comments on the feedback, doesn't comment on how well your story time was, or if there was a problem. Because like I said, I saw this video of a story time of somebody just, their mic wasn't on and they were doing it. And it was like, and it's just like, and at the end, I think somebody said, please turn on your mic. We can't hear anything. Is this a mime story time? So, be aware that that feedback is necessary on a lot of levels, and encourage it all you can. Let people know. One other thing I saw, which I don't know if it's practical or not, but a person actually did a story time outside while the kids were sitting in the cars, and they were broadcasting it through YouTube or through Facebook so that they could see them. And they had the parents flick the lights whenever the kids were happy, or applauding, or doing the, just giving them some kind of indication they were enjoying it. I think, sorry I didn't put up the link or anything like that, but I think that the children really enjoyed it, but I don't think the library could do that again, because it was like, I don't think their parking lot was big enough or something. Okay. So, keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to share the screens. Thank you all for your wonderful feedback. And I am going to try to find somebody else's, where is, hold on one second. This is the technical kind of problems.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Good.
Sometimes I bump the mute button that's on the back there, and I don't realize I've done it. And I can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah. I have too many windows open. This is one of my problems. This is the other thing. Try to not have all your windows open.
It's really hard. You know, it's,
Um,
I'm just going to start talking, Bruce. Can I start talking about mind in
sure.
the making?
Okay, that is not the screen. Hold on. I think this is, I could have sworn I had your, there it is. Okay, and let me see. Are you guys seeing anything? I'm sorry.
I think we see your email screen.
Oh, okay, that's not what I needed. Okay, you go ahead and talk.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing until I find the right slide. My bad.
Well,
Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. You know, my slides are not that important. So, you know, this is a really interesting discussion, and I know that sometimes the skill that I am presenting doesn't always match up exactly with what the literacy skill is that you're looking at today, and that's the case today, but we are at the end of the 7 skills, the 7th one being self-directed engaged learning. Oh, there's my slides. So again, we talk about story times already being a naturally skill-building venue, right? You're calling on the executive function skills and attention regulation skills that all children and all people are going to use in their lives. So when you guys are talking about these narrative, teaching the narrative skills and the vocabulary skills, I really see this executive function stuff in action with that activity, right? Because when you're using the, you know, the way you described the narrative skills about using different expressive language and describing things, putting names to things and ideas and feelings and all of that, that is a lot of what Mind in the Making is about. That's a lot of what these executive function skills do for us. You know, the whole idea of holding a story in your memory so that you can follow the plot or that you can share it again. To, you know, when there's a surprise in the story, that you can incorporate that into your working memory, and you can continue to work with that even though it's a surprise, right? So all of those things are already happening, and that's why, you know, story times are an easy fit for Mind in the Making. So go ahead and go forward to the next slide. Again, this is the last skill that we have to go over. The next, you know, the other part about goal setting is something that's part of Mind in the Making I'm just going to touch on. But self-directed engaged learning is kind of like putting all of the other essential skills to work. It's like the pinnacle of all of these other skills. It really does leverage all of the skills that came before it. So this is the essence of Mind in the Making's goal as well, which is, you know, children are born primed and ready to learn. They are excited about learning. You can see it when you're interacting with a baby or a small child, that every time you're interacting, when you're sharing a story, when you're singing, when you're talking, when you're playing, you can see that child light up and react and engage. And so what we're looking for is to keep that going as that child continues on into school and on into life, is that there's still that enthusiasm and that ability to continue to learn. So let's go on to the next slide. Self-directed engaged learning is really how we ultimately realize our learning potential and put it all to work. So again, by helping children build their essential skills like understanding other people's perspective, communicating effectively, thinking critically, thinking creatively, we set them on that path of growth and success, and we prepare them to do the same thing with the next generation. Let's go to the next slide. I'm not going to go through all of this. This is just a snapshot of a piece that comes from Mind in the Making. This is actually a handout for this particular module. And again, there's a process built into some of these skill, you know, when we look at the learning modules of Mind in the Making, there's some processes that are built into each of these skill building concepts, right? So these are kind of the steps or the actions similar to those 5 brain building actions that I'm always showing you about: listen, talk, back and forth, all of that stuff. These principles are about how to get that child to be self-directed and to set their own goals. So these are the kinds of things that parents are going to be doing as their children are getting older, but they start with building those earlier essential skills. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, and just really quickly, because you've seen all of this before, we talk about a lot of different ways to incorporate more skill building. There's lots of familiar elements that you're already including, like singing, playing music, puppets, props, circle time games, those kinds of things that you do a lot in person, and you're working on figuring out how to do that virtually. We also talked about how lots of children's books are designed or have a theme around essential skills. And so the Mind in the Making skill building books obviously are a good way to use that information. And I just want to point out, because we've talked about this before, but I want to say it while we're being recorded, you know, you can introduce the skills through these books. These Mind in the Making books and their corresponding one-page tip sheets, as well as a bunch of other literacy activities, are included on teachingbooks.net. So when you're planning your programming, I'd encourage you to go there and see if there are activities or books that might work for you at what you're trying to do with your virtual story time. Include a lot of different activities that you can either do during your story time or as an add-on or a teaser to your program. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. But I want, I was taking notes while you guys were talking before, because I was really interested about that, the two literacy skills that you're talking about today. And I wanted, what I started to think about was when you were talking about the vocabulary skills and the narrative skills, one of the things that Mind in the Making kind of calls out in the earlier chapters that we didn't talk about too much is this, what they call parent ease. And it's not baby talk, but it is the way that a parent might talk to a young child. And it's very useful. So it's almost instinctive for some people to speak in a way with higher pitched sounds, with elongated vowel sounds, sing-song voices, maybe repetitive, short and slow, or just really constant narration, right? This idea of parent speak is how children are learning those, they're learning vocabulary skills, they're learning those narrative skills, because that's an engaging way of speaking to a child, even when you're not doing story time, right? So when parents are doing that, when you might be doing that, when you're talking with young children too in your program, I don't want to discourage that. I think sometimes we discourage that, thinking of it as baby talk, but this idea of parent ease is what they call it. It's really called out in Mind in the Making, that the way children are learning their vocabulary, especially in their communication skills, is by listening and mimicking what an adult is doing. They are also watching what an adult is watching. Where does the parent look? Where is the children are picking up all of those little cues, and it's building into their understanding of language. So I just wanted to call that out before I go on to this little goal setting piece. I think as the more we go along with this, the more I think that you all would really enjoy the mind. Oh, could you go back one slide? I'm sorry, Bruce. I think you guys would really enjoy the Mind in the Making modules if you have a chance to participate. And I can tell you more about that later. This is a piece that goes into every module. The learning modules of Mind in the Making are designed as a learning journey, right? So it's about learning from other people, seeing the research, kind of understanding some of the suggestions that are given through the content of Mind in the Making, but then having a learning discussion, and then setting personal goals for how to incorporate skill building in your setting. So WHOOP is a goal setting framework that Mind in the Making uses. I'm not going to go through all of this with you. You can go to whoopmylife.org and practice this little framework. It's fun, it's easy, it's very mindful, and so I think you'll find that timely, and maybe it's something that you might be able to incorporate for yourself or for the families that you're working with. And if you go forward the next slide, I just wanted to open it up and see if you all, after hearing about all of these different skills and trying to sort of see how they line up with your virtual story times and your literacy skills that you're trying to incorporate, are there goals that you have after you kind of, invested this time in this series of learning circles? I'm hoping that you'll take away some concrete ideas for what you can do in your program, or when you get there, because I know some of you are not doing a lot of it just yet. These are some of the common goals that other people come up with a lot of the times in the Mind in the Making modules or in the training series. And I've talked to you about this kind of thing before. It's a kind of a spectrum, right? Do you want to just kind of learn more about your own executive functions and your essential skills and kind of have that in your mind as you're working with families and you're working your life? Or do you want to share it? Do you want to build the concepts or some of that language and messaging into your activities? Do you want to learn more? Do you want to ultimately teach this material to someone else? These are all opportunities that are out there, but I wanted to end my talk and let you guys talk about whether any of this is something you can take with you. This is, anyway, if you have some ideas, you might be thinking about them, but these are easy things that you can do right now to just kind of check out what's available. Obviously, teachingbooks.net we talked about, vroom.org. Vroom is a perfect tool for taking your Mind in the Making skill building and putting it into action. Lots of applications in a library setting for sure. You can read the book. Where's the book? Here's the book. You can visit mindinthemaking.org. There's plenty of materials that you can use on mindinthemaking.org that you don't need any special permission for, like those skill building books. There's also some other skill building scenarios that might not be as applicable for you all, but they're there. Mind in the Making learning module. So each of these skills, there's a learning module for it, and there are trainers that are teaching these modules online for free. Nevada Registry is where early learning professionals go to get their professional development credits, but these classes are available to the public. If you'd like to, you can see them at nevadaregistry.org. Of course, I can provide the learning modules to you at any time. If you want just one of them, if you want all of them, if you want them for your team, whatever you want, we can work that out. And then ultimately, there are folks around the state who are training to become a trainer in Mind in the Making, and they will in turn provide those modules on nevadaregistry.org or within their own agencies or within the community. So there is a full Train the Trainer session coming up in February. So that's what I have for Mind in the Making, and maybe some of that will work for you, but always if you have questions. Sorry, I was going to end it there. I had a couple of vestigial slides at the end.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. I think it's important to note when you're doing the mind in the when you are using the Mind in the Making skills, is these are good work skills for you to have with your colleagues. All these things are, you will find yourself being able to deal with challenges a lot easier if you use some of these if you use these executive function skills. And as Sarah pointed out rightly, almost every story time you guys are doing has these skills in it. Once you're aware of what it is, it might be a good thing to add into your descriptions. It might be good for you to point out at, like in a simpler version to the parents, so it doesn't break the flow of your story time. Like, this will teach your child how to deal, you don't have to go into a scientific explanation of what it is, but just like, this will help your child deal with problems or patience or making decisions, or, how you can encourage them to make the right decisions, and these skills, as Sarah's pointed out, they're all based on each other. And it's like, when you learn one, you can apply two, you can apply three, and 4, 5, until you've used them all and you don't even know that you've done it. Yep. There's a lot of good things. And Sarah, so what was Sarah asking? Sarah was asking you guys, how do you think you can incorporate it into a virtual story time to those situations? Or do you, personally, I don't think you need to be overt about it.
I don't either. And that's a lot of what we hear from the foundation, right? So the foundation that produces this material is, there are people like me in every state who are doing this kind of work with a number of different, partners, right? And that's what we get. Like when we're talking about, well, how are we going to take this for, we're going to train home visitors in these modules or to train this material, even train them as mind in the making trainers. But then what do they do with it? Are they really going to go to somebody's house as a home visit and do a 2-hour module with the family? They're not. So that's not the right way. But there's value in learning the material, because once you do, and once you start working with it and having conversations with other people about it, you will not be able to avoid seeing the skills in action. You won't be able to avoid analyzing them in yourself and in your, family and your coworkers. You'll see it all the time. And so that's like, that's enough for the foundation as well. We love that feedback, and we love to see the room download numbers go up and all of those kind of metrics that we send back. But the foundation recognizes that when you learn this information and you're incorporating it into your own self, it comes out into the community. And that's the kind of surround sound approach that we're really looking for globally. It's a movement. It's not a program, it's a movement. So you're part of the movement now. You've got your own executive function skills kind of twirling around there in the back of your mind, and you're able to think about those things concretely. So now you're part of the movement, and I don't think that there's any way you can avoid starting to incorporate even things that you haven't been doing. You will naturally do it just as a result of thinking about this content.
And yeah, and as I was saying, that a lot of this is organic already. It's just that it's once you know the magic trick, you know what you're doing, you know what it's going on, you see it, you can see it in other story times. If you visit other, webpage, YouTube pages and things like that, you see the skill being taught. And the other thing is the parents are pretty sharp on it too. They understand. One of the big revelations when I became a children's librarian was that I recognized the books that I was reading and the skills that they were teaching me. And when I was a child, I had no idea that was the skill. I was being brainwashed, plain and simple. And a lot of, indoctrinated. A lot of story times even have that purpose in mind. Even the grim fairy tales have an underlying skill there that children have to understand, that they naturally incorporate. The thing is, it's easy. It's like,
easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. You're already doing it. You just didn't know what you were doing,
and the kids will make you do it, right? The kids naturally force you to kind of to make these things happen. And then, the level at which we promote them is something else. But
right.
A lot of this stuff is happening organically.
Yeah, but as usual, you're doing these story times virtually, and that organic feedback is not there naturally. It is good. I emphasize this a couple of times in this session. It is good to have somebody to bounce a story time, talk to a story time to, or do your activities with. It can be a puppet or it can be a person, but that interaction, giving an example of that interaction is really important for the parents out there. Because do remember, our quarantine thing has just gotten longer. Parents may be with children more than they ever thought they would be. Some are really happy about that, but others are just overwhelmed. It's important in your story times to tell the parents to breathe. You're going to do the driving for at least 30 minutes. You don't have to stress out or come up with anything. We're going to have a fun time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do have any curbside pickups and things like that, it might be a good idea to let them know that, throw in a little slip of paper, and I'm not talking about your programs that you're offering, but just that, breathe, try to be well, we're here for you. Contact us if you need anything. If you want to throw in a skill idea or room technique, and I do encourage you all to download the Vroom app to your phone, because I found if I was a child's librarian just starting out, like some of us are, those little techniques and skills will help you incorporate them into your story times. I mean, and how to communicate with your parents, more importantly, out there, to give them a go away tip, so to speak. Like if you go to the grocery store, have your, to ask your child what color, what's yellow in the produce section. Is that yellow? Is that yellow? And reinforcing it, and have your child go and get the items for you, and et cetera, so that you can teach them decision making, like which banana looks better than the other set of bananas, which apple looks better than the other apples, what is that you're holding? Can you tell me, and just get that interaction. And those tips are very helpful to add into your story times at the end, to give parents something that they can help, even if they're never leaving the house. There are things in those room tips that are very good for you to use and utilize. And, because parents are looking for things for their kids to do, I imagine by now.
Yep. And I would call out those, if you're, your virtual stuff, a lot of you using social media to promote it or even to host it. And there's tons of room social media stuff that you can just pick up, share it, use it as a teaser. There's tiles, videos, all of which are really easy to grab and share either from YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. So yeah, I would encourage you to do that too as an add-on or a preview of the kind of skills that you're going to be looking at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're going to be doing virtual story times from now on. It'll be in the coursework when you go to get your Master of Libraries degree or doctorate. It's going to be an important part. It is now an important part of what the library services are. And the better you get at it, the more you do, the more interactions you have from your parents and things like that. Even recording a story time live is very helpful when you get your audience back, but for the most part, you're all doing really well. You all care. You all want the best for your library. You all want the best for your community. You do want the best for the kids. And, we're dealing with what tools we have and don't feel too much pressure on yourself to be perfect. When you're fumbling around for a slide, you don't feel perfect. This is recorded. I'm not going to edit out my goofs. The mistakes are just as important as the successes. And, and pass that along to your parents with your skills and things like that. Okay, I'm going to share the screen one more time, except it's going to be mine. Okay, and that's the cover of the book in case anybody doesn't know. And I don't know if there's imitators out there or not, but they're probably on Amazon there are. So, but it's a good book to read. And you'll have your mind blown if you watch the videos and things like that. And we just done our discussion time. And here's the things that I want to talk to you guys about the future. Always be asking yourself how to apply all early literacy skills and executive functions to your story times. Finding and sharing new ways to instruct families and staff in early literacy skills and executive functions. And these are things that you should always keep in your subconscious. And most of all, please develop your people library. Your people library are your fellow librarians and library staff and even patrons who know things that you might not know, who you can call on to reference. Anybody seen the movie Fahrenheit? I can't remember the number, 352 or something like 450. Yeah, 451. Thank you. I just totally blanked, and that's going out live. But people became walking books, but they've always been walking books. And I think you guys, should start relying on other people and their knowledge and share that knowledge like we're doing today. Don't stop doing that. Just keep communicating with people. And once again, here is our survey. Please take it so that we can get feedback, because as we've been discussing, feedback virtually is gold. And Merry Christmas and season's greetings, everybody. You've all been wonderful. This is the next to last session. We're going to be having one on Thursday at 10. And if you need to get in touch with us, here is my phone number and email address. And there's Sarah's. And she is from the Children's Cabinet, so give a good shout out to the Children's Cabinet there for, you know, for helping me with these seminars. And hopefully we will be doing something like this in the future, you know, or you know, this is a partnership. And don't forget to develop your partnerships with your local community groups as well. As you guys know, the summer reading is going to be coming up soon, and the theme this year is tales and animals. Do look around your communities for people who have some kind of animal or something they'd like to share, because for some reason people like snakes. Some reason people like rats. Some people have hawks and owls and all kinds of animals. And it would be really great if they could share them. They don't have to come into the library with them, because God, everybody will run out the door. But, you know, they could do a recording from home or something like that. Encourage them, you know, to share their animals in this story time. And also keep in mind what you've learned here over the last couple of sessions. You can always go onto our YouTube page and check out and remember all the good times and all the things discussed. And not only that, if you have library staff, everybody should know these skills. They should know the executive functioning skills, and they should know the early literacy skills, even if they don't interact with children. Encourage them to learn those skills. If they need to come on to and tell them they can view the videos here and learn from other librarians how to do things. And with that, yes.
I have one question. So I came in at the tail end of this. Are the previous sessions recorded so I can go back and watch them?
Yes. This session is recorded too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of the decisions we made, even though we didn't want to make it to record these.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, do share them, do review them if you feel the need.
Absolutely.
Do share them with your staff. You know, we're going to, and I'm not going to eat up all the oxygen tonight, but just to give you guys an idea of the importance of this, our literacy skills were not that great for children in Nevada. And with the pandemic, it set people back, you know, in the development of these skills. So we're even more important than we were. The schools cannot teach these literacy skills right now. You know, they're overwhelmed with whatever they're having to do. And, you know, it would be a good idea for us to step up and be a little bit more visible as helpers rather than obstacles or, you know, irrelevant. So please, if you can, try to engage the schools as much as you can. Please emphasize that these skills are important for the kids. Parents will catch on to that. They're all aware that their children are behind, you know, and I mean, so that is the last I'm going to mention because I've been hogging the mic too much. Does anybody have anything else to add? Seeing none, I'm going to stop the recording. So if there is something you want to add and not be recorded for all time, the recording is now stopping. Thank you for all attending.